Hi, I'm in front of a new couch today, and this is my cat. The place where I usually film, a light went out, so deal with my cat's tail? Well, what are you gonna do? I just moved somewhere else, that's what I did. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, Dream Theater. You see, if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably choose my favorite genre of metal of being progressive. It's kind of a pretentious thing to say, but thinking about a bunch of my favorite bands, they are progressive. And what does that mean, really? Well, it just means that they take a bit more time to be technical in their instrumentation. If you listen to a prog metal band, you're going to hear a lot of guitar solos, a lot of complicated riffs, and usually flourishing keyboard pianos. Kind of pretentious and wacky, I know, but you honestly get some great music out of it. And one of the absolute leaders of the genre is Dream Theater. And they are, obviously, one of my all-time favorite bands. So rather fitting that the first album I ever talk about is going to be their newest album, The Astonishing. Now, I'd love to play you some Dream Theater so you can get to know one of my favorite bands if you haven't already. But this is YouTube, and I don't want to get my channel deleted, because YouTube is run by idiots and bots. My gripes aside, if you haven't heard Dream Theater, I strongly urge you to go pause this video, go up into that search bar, and listen to a couple songs. I hope you get to hear what I hear if you do that, and that they're not just great instrumentalists, they're also good at crafting some memorable good songs. One of the problems you can get with bands that fly under the progressive banner is their songs are usually a bit too much about wowing the listener with how good they are at guitar or whatever, and they sometimes forget to write actual good songs. Not the case with Dream Theater, and that's not the case with this album. Despite this being Dream Theater's weirdest album yet, let me establish that first and foremost. Like, Dream Theater usually writes songs where the band gets together, and you can see in like the liner notes of their albums who wrote what parts of the song, or at the very least, who were the absolute songwriters. Usually it's the band themselves and one person to write lyrics to the song. This time it's completely different. The songwriting process has been totally streamlined to the music being written by John Petrucci, the guitarist, and Jordan Rudess, the keyboardist, and all the lyrics are John Petrucci. This is definitely a bit weird for me, but only because that this is Dream Theater's new concept album. Yes, it entirely tells a story. Dream Theater are no strangers to concept albums or including narratives in their songs before. One of their more critically lauded Dream Theater albums is also a concept album, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory. That's a concept as well. But this one's a bit weird. Let me break down the concept for you. Far off in the distant time of 2285, an evil empire has conquered the entirety of upstate New York. I'm not kidding. And this evil empire is led by the evil Lord Nefarious. Again, I am not kidding. And one of the things that Lord Nefarious has done in order to subdue any dissent is to completely ban music. The only source of entertainment the poor and struggling people have under this empire are what you see on the cover. It's these floating spherical machines that play nothing but industrial sounding bleeps and bloops. I told you this was really weird. In fact, I'm more reminded of the band Ayreon, which the singer James LaBrie has been a part of in their Human Equation album, which you should also check out, it's really good. This is definitely much more weird than their themes in Scenes from a Memory, which dealt with past life regression and regret and a lot of stuff like that. Like, Dream Theater, even at their most wackiest, there's still like a memorable core to them. This, they're going full balls to the wall batshit insane. But you know what? Despite the completely stupid and corny framing device, and I will admit it's totally corny, this isn't that poorly written. It's not really that original, since the savior of the story is, one of the last singers on Earth who has a magical voice to him. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you, because it came with art, the characters of this play. Hopefully this can show up well. I've been working on trying to get... it's recording in HD, and I don't know why when I convert it to YouTube it's not HD anymore. But I'm going to show off some of this art that shows up. Here is Emperor Nefarious himself. And this is Aris, leader of the Resistance. I'm getting a Game of Thrones inspired vibe from this. Sorry, I keep looking over there. There's a screen. Here's Gabriel, the singer. I'm going to throw up a pic of James Labrie because I think we see where they get the inspiration for the singer. Here's Faith, the princess. Here's Empress Arabelle, who has a bit of a passive role in the story. And over there is their son, what's his name? Darius, the prince, who's kind of a prick. And, here is Evangeline, the dead wife of Eris. It's not a spoiler. He says she's dead in, like, one of the first songs. And Xander is their son. Let's see. I'm going to credit the artist to this. Artwork by Jiema. That's all it says. I'm not going to put this up there because it's really hard to see because it's white on clouds, but I'm going to do a Google search after I'm done with this video and see if there's Jiema as a DeviantArt or something. Because I like that art, man. Despite that corny premise, in the second act, the story actually gets into its own and goes places I didn't predict it would go. But that's just the lyrics. I rarely talk about the lyrics, but when it's a concept, I usually like to give it a shot. The music, which is probably the most important part, despite being streamlined, again, by only 2 members of the band writing, when it's usually everybody. The first disc, the first act, because it's a 2-disc effort, might I add, kind of sees Dream Theater going back to their 90s days when they weren't as heavy. If you're a fan of Dream Theater, then you probably know that after 2003's Train of Thought, where the band was at its, most metal, most heaviest, the band has kind of kept that going. But for the first half of this album, it seems to go back to the more lighter, I don't want to say poppy, but accessible even, and that's not even the right word, but it's a bit lighter on the first half of the record. Like the song tone's a bit brighter, it's not as aggressive. It's definitely classy. You hear me saying that because I don't think that's the right word, but that's what comes to mind when I think of the music. In the second half of the album is where the music gets a bit heavier, and when the writing gets like significantly better too, because it's silly, but it's kind of standard starting out. But when it gets to the second half, the song title, A Moment of Betrayal, really tells you where things go. And that's also the album's one of the heavier songs, and it's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. Let me tell you some of the standout tracks. The Gift of Music, which was their first video single, that's one of the standout tracks. So is When Your Time Has Come, An Act of Faith, which built on the character of Faith, the princess you saw with the pink hair. We've Lost, SJWs Have Taken Over the Future. No. And yeah, Moment of Betrayal are all fantastic songs. Like I said, Dream Theater knows how to craft a song, and even at their weirdest, they still make great songs, man. Now for some of the things that are going to be hard to talk about. I said this was a concept album. I'm not kidding. There's multiple characters that I showed off before, and James Labrie voices all of them. I mentioned Arion before, doing similar concepts to this, and the guy in charge of that usually recruits other vocalists for the different characters. And let me tell you, it's really awkward hearing James Labrie go from a narrator to the protagonist, to Nefarious as the antagonist, to the female roles, because he's playing those too, to the kid. James Labrie, God bless him, he's one of my all-time favorite singers and a personal inspiration. And he's trying to mix it up so you can tell the difference between the different characters, but it's honestly really awkward. It's like a one-man play. Not to disrespect people who do one-man shows, but you get how it can be a bit awkward. Also, this album is long! This is a very long album. It's 2 full hours of your time to sit down and listen to the ticking of that clock, which I thought I fixed. To sit down and listen to 2 hours of music. Not a lot of people are going to be down for that because there's only 24 hours in a day. And when you work, you're not going to have that much time to relax. And because this album is so out of left field, even by Dream Theater standards, it's probably not gonna stick with a lot of people. Let me tell you right now, I want everybody who watches this to listen to Dream Theater because they're one of my all-time favorite bands. But if you want to get into Dream Theater, it's better that you start with Images and Words, their 1992 album, Train of Thought, their 2003 album, or their previous release, the self-titled Dream Theater from 2013. Those are a bit easier to digest, there's no really high concept to them, and they're probably a better look into what this band is usually about. But if you're willing to take a risk and start out with something really freaking weird, go with this. I say weird, and weird is definitely not a bad thing. I like weird. Look at my beard. Of course I like weird stuff. This might be... I don't know, check back in December when I talk about the albums that I really loved, and this might be on here. I gotta tell you that despite not having really long songs, I mean, my favorite Dream Theater song is probably Endless Sacrifice from Train of Thought, and that's 12 minutes long. This is still absolutely fantastic. Again, if you want to take a risk and start your Dream Theater experience with this album, go ahead. If you're already into Dream Theater or progressive music in general, you should immediately give this a shot. It's going to be a bit weird, but it's freaking incredible. But again, if you want to get into Dream Theater and you haven't listened to a single Dream Theater song before, give it a YouTube search, see if it'd be something you're into listening to, and then check out the 3 albums I talked about earlier, because that'd probably be a better place to start off with. Anyway, this was my first ever review on music, and it's really hard to talk about music on YouTube because I can't play you anything. Like I said earlier, YouTube's run by bots who don't understand the concept of fair use. So I have 2 people I want to thank. Theneedledrop, which you probably already heard of because they're the biggest YouTube music reviewer, and Nation, who does kind of the same thing. He reviews mostly metal, but sometimes, things that go out there, and they taught me that you can review music without playing the music you're talking about. And I hope I did a good job. This was my first review, so I probably didn't do things perfectly, but I hope I really sold this album to people, because this is an album that deserves to be bought and listened to. But yeah, I hope you go out and buy this album, or I hope you give Dream Theater a listen to, because they are one of my all-time favorite bands. Thank you very much for listening to my video about this album. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you around.